Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Growth Class. I'm your host, Phil Masiello, and today we're cutting through the fluff to talk about what it actually takes to build a product based business that stands for something in an era of disposable everything. My guest today is a guy who saw a gap in the market and didn't just try to fill it with another cheap import, decided to build the best version of the product on the planet right here in the USA. He's a CEO and co-founder of The Cold Life, a brand that takes the wellness world by storm, or that is taking the wellness world by storm. We're going to dive into his journey from car sales to manufacturing the Rolls-Royce of cold plunges, why he walked away from overseas suppliers to bring his production to Miami, and how he's using psychological drivers like certainty and status to scale a premium brand. Please welcome to the show, Ponton. Kyle, thanks for joining us. Thanks for taking the time. And why don't you give us a little bit of history?
Yeah, well, what an intro, Phil. I appreciate that. Happy to be here. Yeah, the short intro is the short history is that I started this brand, The Cold Life, about 4 years ago now, with really a vision in mind that we felt like there just wasn't really a product in the marketplace for cold plunging that felt like people wanted to put it inside of their houses. It was a lot of bathtubs, inflatables, cheap Chinese or overseas products that just didn't feel very natural. I know when I went to go look to get one, the very first indicator was asking my wife, what would this look like in our backyard or our back patio? And the immediate answer was, we're not putting a bathtub back in our backyard. So I figured, if I'm going through that, then there's got to be a lot of other people, I think, that are probably experiencing similar pain points. And so, that was kind of the birth of it. And I fell in love with cold plunging as an activity myself. I went to a spa one day, was extremely sick, and couldn't get really anything to kick the illness. I was on Z-Packs and ibuprofen and all these different things, and just couldn't quite get over the hump. And then one day I went to a spa and did like contrast. So we were doing cold plunging and sauna back and forth. And I came out of that thing about 3 hours later, and I was revived. I felt like a brand new man. And it really woke up to, what the power of cold plunging really can do. That inflammation, the power of what it does for really kickstarting your day, kickstarting the mental side of things. And so I just felt incredible. I was like, man, I need to really dive into this because this is a powerful thing. And so that's what really kickstarted the journey. And then, yeah, 4 years later, we've now sold, I don't know, almost nearly 10,000 of these things across the country and the world. It started with our kind of original ultimate plunge product, which is what we're known most for, which is that vertical made out of aluminum, made right here in America, as you mentioned. And now we've expanded into other products, some cheaper and some more entry level models, and then also we have just recently this past year really expanded the brand into water filtration, and so we now offer premium filtered shower heads and filtered water products, as we feel like that is a really good adjacent category to be in and to be serving our customers. And we tell our customers all the time, if you can't afford one of our cold plunges, to get started in a cold shower. And so we figured, why not make a product that could accommodate that?
Yeah, that's interesting. You know, um, I read somewhere about you that you talk about how cold plunging isn't just about recovery, but it's about doing the hard things first. I'm not sure what you mean about that. So if you could explain that, because I use that term in when I coach entrepreneurs about doing the hard things first.
Mm.
So
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think in simple form, I'm a big believer in trying to get the big stuff out of the way first, and that's what I mean by hard stuff. Is when I go and take my cold plunge every single morning. There's never a day that I'm really pumped to get in that thing. I go out on my balcony and stare it in the face every time, and I'm never pumped to really get in it. But every time I get out of it, I'm extremely grateful, when I come out of it. And so I always say that if I can get through the cold plunge, and there's nothing really else that I can't get through for the rest of the day. And so I think it's really more just about building that discipline of habit and doing those hard things, which really builds kind of that mental muscle of being able to continuously do those hard things. When you get an email or you get a whatever call or something happens in your day and you don't really want to handle it, getting in that cold plunge, it reminds me of that. And I'm like, you know what? Just get in, and on the other side of this, everything's going to be just fine. If I just respond and do it, everything's going to be fine. If I just get it over with, it's going to be fine. So I think just that kind of attack the day mentality, the cold plunge and actually doing it every single morning is what I mean by that.
Yeah, I can relate. I don't do cold plunging, but there for a long period of time in my life, I was doing triathlons, and we used to have training 5 o'clock in the morning at the gym in the pool. And
Mhm.
you would wake up at 4:30, get in your car, drive to the pool, so you're still half awake. And then you gotta jump in the pool and just start exerting yourself, because swimming for me did not come naturally, so it was one of the hardest things I've ever done. And just that feeling of jumping into because any water is cold, because your
Yep.
body temperature is 98.6, so even if the pool temperature is 70 degrees, it's still
Yeah.
cold. So and then you've got to start exerting yourself. So I understand exactly what you mean about doing the hard things first, because once you're done with your workouts in the morning, there's nothing you can't tackle for the rest of the day, really.
Exactly. And I think that's really why cold plunging is now, it started off as very trending, the past 5 years for recovery for athletes and that sort of thing. You had a lot of big names and a lot of big celebrities that were promoting it, but I think now it's really sticking because it does have a lot of those recovery benefits, but there's now broadening the category of who actually cold plunges, right? 5 years ago, it was your meatheads, your recovery people, your athletes, right? I mean, that was kind of the only category of people that would be willing to get into cold water willingly, for several minutes in a day. Now you broaden that category to moms, dads, CEOs, entrepreneurs, people who are just trying to get that little bit of an extra edge in life and really figure out what that is. And for a lot of people, cold plunging gives that extra edge that they need to just win the day.
It's actually I saw it on a commercial last night, a television commercial last night with, I forget who was in the commercial, but it was an ad for something, and there were two guys in cold plunge baths. And,
Awesome.
one guy was trying to take the ice out, because it was too cold for him. Somebody dumped ice in to make it cold for him. And anyway,
That's funny.
it's it is kinda going a bit mainstream because, yeah, you used to look at it, you would see Peyton Manning jumping in after a game, or you would see, the linemen jumping in after a game. But now, yeah, it's normal, regular people getting almost like
Exactly.
having a hot tub in your backyard.
Exactly. That's kind of where we see the industry going. Obviously, it does serve a bit of a different customer, but in terms of the physical, kind of thing that might sit or live, it's almost like an appliance, right? In someone's backyard, it's going to be exploding. We get contacted every day by different architectural firms, construction firms, builders that are doing these big condo buildings down here where we live in South Florida, right? And they want to put them in every single unit, out on the balcony or in the bathrooms or in the wellness rooms now that are very popular. And so it's now it's really broadened to more of that wellness category instead of just, like I said, the athletes or whatever the case may have been 5, 10 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that, and I can also see the women getting involved because my wife would be like that. I can't buy anything for the house that I doesn't get approval
Yeah,
from my wife. It doesn't matter whether it's inside or outside, everything. It goes from bushes to furniture. It's true. It's
exactly. No, it's
yeah,
true. It's true, which is at our core, principle of how we approach product is it does we always say it has to be beautiful first. And it does have to function, but we don't want to put out anything that doesn't just strike an eye. You look at it, I mean, we get compliments on it every day, but it just looks it has a bold presence to it and it doesn't look like this kind of bulky hot tub, old school bathtub thing. It looks like this kind of striking object. You're like, wow, what is that thing? And you find out it's a cold plunge. Like, wow, that thing is beautiful. That thing's badass.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You certainly need it to look good because or else the women aren't gonna buy into it. I got a buddy up the street who put in a hot tub without asking his wife. It just got delivered and he put it in, and man, she is not a happy camper, and he
Yeah,
catches grief for it.
that's a bad idea. That's a bad idea. Now, not to segue into it, but I will say your wife is definitely not going to be upset at you if you put in a good shower head. Most of all the compliments that we get these days is actually was a really big hit for Valentine's Day for boyfriends and husbands to get the shower head for their wives as a Valentine's Day gift because the wives love it, right? I mean, it's great for their hair, their skin, the way they feel. It's very refreshing, and it still looks beautiful. Comes in all the different colors, and so most wives are extremely grateful for the shower head ones. The cold plunges are, yeah, I think you need an approval on that thing first.
the shower and the shower heads and all that, we redid all the bathrooms in our house, and I picked none of that, and so my wife did. We have things that do all kinds of things that I mean, we don't even just have a normal, exhaust fan in the bathrooms. We have exhaust fans that you can play music through that have speakers in it, so that was all taken care of. The shower heads, they do all kinds of things. They can make it rain and they can make it
All kinds of nonsense. Yeah, that's
yeah,
cool.
yeah, cold,
That's
hot, it
awesome.
doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
really
yeah,
cool. That's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah, and I think it fits into, we wanna really, the reason why we came out with that product in general was because, our skin is the biggest gateway, right? It's a barrier to everything, and
sure.
so why do we live in a very toxic world, and so you can't really filter out air if you run around outside. You can filter the water you drink, right? But a lot of people don't think about filtering the water that you're showering in, and it is our largest organ, and so it's not like if you were to have this water go onto your body, it doesn't just reflect off, right? If you were to stick one of your hands and stick it in a cup and actually let it sit there for about 30 seconds, and you were to take a chlorine strip and you were to test that cup prior and before, prior, you would see a bunch of chlorine in it. 30 seconds later, you take that same test, you would actually see zero chlorine in there. And that's because it just absorbed right into your skin. And so it's one of those things that is just, it's not going anywhere but into your body, which is just not good, right? You don't want chlorine being absorbed into your skin. It's what causes all the eczema, the dry skin, the issues. And so, we really want to, we really think that helping people and educating people on why that's not a good thing for your body and to your skin is a good thing. So even like you mentioned, oh, I don't want to change out this big gorgeous shower head I got, whatever the case may be. We have products coming that you can kind of put in line, right? So you don't have to maybe change up the singing shower head or the Bluetooth shower head or the light up shower head, whatever the case may be. We understand that people are protective of those in certain cases. So yeah, we have some products coming that will take care of that, and you can still filter the water.
No, I agree with you. I think filtering your water is, it's essential to health, and I'll I'm a city boy. I grew up in the Bronx in New York, and we never had, we always had city water and, nobody ever wanted to drink it. And, it was always, you always thought it was the worst. And when we moved into where we live now, it's the first time in my life that we had a well. And I never grew up with a well, so I have no idea. But we also have a septic system because we live, you know, in the woods, essentially. And, 5 miles from downtown, but we're in the woods. But anyway, um, I thought to myself, there's just no way I want the water that's in the ground coming to me onto my body, and we have a pool and, we have all this
Yep.
stuff and it just didn't make sense. So I got this massive filtration system for the house
Yep.
because and it makes a difference because you notice that the water I can't
It
explain it, but it feels differently. It
does.
doesn't feel like, I don't know. It feels different. It doesn't
Softer,
feel like
yeah.
it's
A
yeah.
little bit softer, a little bit more refreshing, and I think, there's a lot of people who have home health, systems like you just mentioned, which I'm a huge proponent of, and if you can afford it, I would say go for it every day of the week. We were just over at Gary Brecka's place yesterday doing some recording and some filming, and he's, one of the biggest biohackers and health education people right now in the space, and, he lives at the top of a condo building here in South Florida, and very common for condo buildings. But for condo buildings, if you want to filter your own water at your unit, you're still filtering really what's coming in from the building. And so, even though you are filtering the water, technically you can actually only filter the cold water because the hot water at most buildings is actually done on the bottom. Otherwise, I'd have to put these boilers at every single level. And so, it's a big boiler on the bottom that it pushes up. Well, the problem with that is you can't actually put a filtration level on those hot waters unless you were to do it for the entire building. And so, even for a lot of instances like that, where you may not be filtering your hot water line, it's still very helpful to put one of these filters on there. And I always talk about putting it at the source, just like any kind of, logic would assume. You're putting it right before it touches your body. And so therefore you're really getting out anything that might be stuck in the pipes or the rust or whatever the case may be, because stuff just lives there. Your water just sits in these pipes for years and years and years. And then it comes down. I mean, even looking at this video I saw at Gary's place where he has this huge water filtration system. And so it's a pretty large unit with a lot of water going in and out, and they did like a backfill where they basically drained out everything after a few months to clean out the system and the whatever. And oh my gosh, this is after it was filtered, but just absolutely disgusting. I mean, if people knew that they were like showering in that water, it would be detrimental. Nobody would shower in that water. Nobody would do it, but it's because it's cumulative, and we talk about that a lot. But showering in some tap water is not going to kill you. It's not going to give you cancer today. But doing it consecutively, cumulatively over time is really where it starts to add up. All these toxins just continuously going into your body. And instead of filtering it, we become the filter, right? Our hearts, our lungs, our skin cells, everything, we become that filter. And therefore,
Sure.
eventually it starts to degrade, over time. And so finding products, not just like our shower head that will help filter out things like all these toxins and chemicals, these chlorines, these harsh chemicals that are coming into your body, but also looking for other areas where you can filter, whether it be air filtration, obviously staying away from drinking tap water. These are things that cumulatively over time do add up to really degrading and eating at your health. I mean, that's my core belief, is you see it a lot now with all these different health diseases across the country. It's a lot to do with the environment that we live in. I mean, if you just were to eat healthy, do the right things, filter your water, filter your air, like, you would be 95% ahead of all these, biohackers that are, sucking down peptides every second. It's like, well, you're doing that, but you're not eating clean, you're not, filtering your water, you're not filtering your air. And these are things that have real impact on your health over the
Oh,
the longer
I
time.
I agree. The first time I looked at the filters when they pulled them out after we, installed a filtration system, I couldn't believe it. But even with all that, I still have filters on every single faucet in every single room in the every single water room in the
Yep,
house
exactly.
because I mean, it's amazing to me. And I'll tell you, one of the things that really made me put them on every single faucet was there's another house up the street. I know, the guy's a friend of mine, and he said to me one day, he goes, "How often do you change your appliances?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Your washing machine, your dryer." I go, I don't understand. What do you mean? How often do I change them?" I said, we buy a washing machine, we run it until it breaks. I don't know, 15 years, 10 years. I don't know how long. I'd have to ask my wife, but I said, why? He said, what do you do with all the dirt? I said, "What are you talking about?" He says, he was scooping dirt out of his washing machine. And I said, "Don't you have a filtration system in your house?" He goes, "Yeah, I have a filtration system." He said, it's going on the well, but he was still getting all this dirt. He said, and his wife
Wow.
and his daughters were going to get their hair done. And the people doing their hair kept pointing out all the things that were in their hair still. And
Wow.
I was like, even with a filtration system, he's got all this stuff going through. And when you think about the water, where the water's coming in from, right? The water's
Mhm.
coming in from the ground. I don't care who you are. The water's coming in from the ground somewhere, right? If you're in a city and it's in a reservoir, that water still came out of the ground somewhere or
Yep.
the sky, right? So now you're trying to believe that there's filtration of that water going through the system. And there may be not, but it can't be 100% effective.
No.
So when you start to look at what's in the water and all the minerals and all the things that are, you're putting chemicals on your lawn, you're putting chemicals in on,
Yep.
your neighbor's putting chemicals on the lawn. So
Yep.
I 100% agree. We were in the skincare business early on, many years ago, and the whole premise was we were in the natural. It was actually raw, and we
Yeah.
had read so many studies about what's on your skin, what goes into your skin, where it comes from, just in the ambient air. And
Mm.
then you start reading about people who get infections when they get cuts, and that's
Yep.
just coming off of their skin. So 100% I agree with you. You know, if you're looking at your health, you've got to look at the water that's going on your body. You've got to look at what you're
Yeah.
putting in your body as far as food goes, what you're drinking, you know, how even drinking water. Like I don't drink bottled water. I have a reverse osmosis system for drinking
Yep.
water just
There you go.
because. So, you know, trying
Yeah.
to get all those microplastics out. So yeah,
Hmm.
100%.
It's very
100%.
it's very important. And touching on the business, aspect of things, when we went to go develop these shower heads and really decide that we want to enter this category, we really looked at the category. I pulled all the different products off the shelves. I ordered them all off Amazon, off their websites, and I did proper testing. And I looked at, are these filters doing anything? What are they removing, if anything? How long do they last? What's the efficacy of these filters, et cetera? And that was honestly when we really decided to kind of jump, full force in, because I realized that most of the companies out there don't particularly do a lot of the real studies and really try to make these filters as effective as they need to be. And so I spent over $100,000 personally within our company on just the R&D of our filter, not the molds, not the product, but just the R&D of the filter, finding the right proper materials to put inside of these filters and how long the actual
Yeah.
filtration would last, because most of the things that I discovered was that these companies were putting in kind of the same typical ingredients you would find when you go to a proper manufacturer and try to build one of these products. But after about a week, sometimes even less, you would actually find that the sampling would be doing almost nothing. You'd have virtually zero filtration because they just didn't have high quality ingredients going inside of these actual filters. And so we set out there and said, could this be done? Could we make something that actually lasted a very long time? And so we did that, and we did all the right clinical testing and lab studies to put that filter through as much testing as we possibly could. We tested it to 10,000 gallons, which is much longer than what most people would typically have in a 90-day period. And we
Yeah.
were still able to get over 85% of the chlorine out, as many as a lot of the other bad PFAs, heavy metals, et cetera, out of that water, which was a huge thing for us. It was really hard to do in this space. And being partners with someone like Gary Brecka, you can't really bring a product to a Gary Brecka that's not the absolute best of the best and has all the elite testing done to it. And so we wanted to make sure that this product had the best of the best filtration to it. And I think that's really our angle. And that's what we're becoming known for, is becoming trusted in the water space, to where if we put out a product and can trust, like, this is really backed by science. There's real labs. We post everything online. We don't hide anything. You can go right on there and click on the results and see it for yourself. And I think that level of transparency around the quality of the filters is really what's setting us apart from most of the competitors out there that are kind of just ordering it from, some Chinese factory, not really doing any kind of QC on the ingredients, and unfortunately just not delivering the best results.
Yeah. 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 I don't think people understand how bad things like chlorine are for your body. You know, it's a gas you know, when if, if you were in a room and somebody put chlorine in the room, you would gag. I mean,
Horrible. It's
yeah, it's not
horrible.
good for you. And
No,
so, you
that's
know,
absolutely terrible. If you ever walked into a storage room where they store chlorine, and even when it's in boxes and it's in bottles and everything, you walk into the room and you can immediately just you get a huge whiff of it. It's so bad.
well, when we bought this house, it had a chlorine pool, and
Mm.
they had a shed just for the pool, and you know, it was all those chemicals in there, and I was like, I can't do this. And we transitioned it to a saline pool, which is
That was
better.
smart. That was
Yeah,
smart.
it's better, but it's still not ideal. But you know, it's about as best as you're going to get. But I do have a really good filtration on that because again, we live in the woods, and all kinds of stuff winds up in the pool, and
Mm.
so
Yeah. No, that's
yeah,
important.
yeah. Yeah. So, um, just we're almost out of time. Just to wrap it up, and any last minute kind of messages to folks. I mean, I love the American made part. You know, politics aside, I love American made because I've always been a proponent. Not again, politics aside, because the turnaround is so much better, and I
Mhm.
can react to things, and I can have control over the manufacturing without having to spend 2 weeks flying somewhere to go and do it.
Yeah.
You know, so I love that part. Um,
Yeah. I'm a massive believer in this country and the entrepreneurs that it breeds and the quality that it breeds. I think being able to manufacture here and actually having the opportunity to do that is an opportunity that I'm eternally grateful for because it's very difficult to do. Most companies just don't have the opportunity to do so. It's extremely cost effective to do most things overseas. We were fortunate enough to be in a business where I think, we had to fight for it being here in America. It was certainly more cost effective to do overseas. But there was an argument to be made that if we could pull it off, and if we can make really high quality stuff, that people would be willing to pay a little bit more money to be able to get that extra bit of quality and trust out of an American made product. And we did that decision pretty early on. We didn't start off with it. We started off ordering the same chillers that most of our competitors were. I ordered 150 chillers and about had a 65% failure rate with every single one of them. Almost put us out of business. We had to go get personal loans and guarantees just to be able to fund new customers with new chillers. And by the grace of God, we got this chiller out of an American manufacturer to market within about a year, and that was really what saved our company. Because after that, it was really just a really strong, reliable product from that point on. And I think to a message for anybody out there that's considering or looking or evaluating, or if you even have a slight chance of an opportunity to do something here in America, there's a few things. There's the quality that you're going to get, which is absolutely unmatched. There's the one thing you mentioned, Phil, which is the speed and the rate at which you can actually adjust on the fly, fix things, do things. It's monumental, and it's very different than being able to work with suppliers overseas, even if they're good ones. It's just monumentally faster to be able to do things here. And there is just a level of quality control and perfection that goes into American craftsmanship that is just found nowhere else in the world. There's nobody out there that has the same level of mindset around quality, because you also have to remember that America is an extremely privileged, state to be in. And so we have a mindset of spending in abundance around quality that many other countries just don't have from a mental standpoint. And so they're always trying to think about how do you shave cents off of something, which typically equates to shaving quality. And in America, we just don't think that way. We are truly thinking, how do we properly make the best product for the consumer? And that's what has really turned into our company and brand, is what we're known for the most of, is everything, on our cold plunge lines is made right here in America, which has just been, like I said, an absolute amazing opportunity to be a part of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Phil.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So how do people find you?
So you can check out our brand, The Cold Life. That's our page, is The Cold Life. My personal page is Kyle Ponton, KYlePonton. I'm most active on Instagram, as is the brand as well. So Instagram is typically the most preferred platform, but you can find us by those handles on any social media platform.
Great. Hey, man, I really appreciate you coming on, and good luck. I really like what you're doing with the product, and hopefully we keep in touch.
Absolutely. Thanks, Phil. Appreciate you,
Yeah.
man.
My
Thanks for having me.
pleasure. Right. Bye.